Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a game day edition of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, all the places at Hawk Blogger. We're charging towards 10,000 followers on Instagram. Would love to add you there. I think we just crossed over 5,000 on TikTok. Would also love to add you there. Lots of great stuff up there from the guys on the staff, Will and Braden, who create shorts for the show. So make sure you check it out. And if you're someone who needs more shorts being created for whatever you're doing, I know at least some of the guys would love some extra work. So let me know. I'm happy to find some extra work for guys doing great work for us. It's an interesting day. It is the second preseason game for the Seahawks, the 2025 Seahawks, tonight for Mike McDonald going against Andy Reid in Seattle at 7 o'clock. And they're going to play some starters. We're going to talk about that. It is raining. Now, it's a light rain now. It's supposed to pick up a little bit, but, I don't love it. I don't love it. The number one thing you're looking for out of any preseason game is health. And you want to make sure everybody comes out at least as capable as they went in. And I don't know how much rain affects all those things, but in my mind, having played sports, you don't need any extra variables that could make it more likely to slip. So hopefully the weather isn't too terrible, and we also get to just see some football. On the other side, rain kind of fits what I think the Seahawks are trying to create as far as their identity, physical, running type of team. Are we going to see that? So I'm going to talk you through this game tonight. Eager to hear your thoughts as well. Make sure you leave a comment in chat. I'll do my best to get to it. And, I wanted to try to merge a couple of topics today. We'll see how it goes. But I mentioned it on Real Hawk Talk this week that all these conversations about the Seahawks, I feel like, are just being puppeted across the league. It's basically gotten to the point where there is a narrative, and we've all heard it dozens of times, maybe pushing the triple digits in terms of how many times we've heard people say the same thing. I'm going to play for you some of the predictions that are already out. People are already doing their division predictions. They're already doing their win total predictions, which I think all by itself is a pretty good indicator, the quality of the analysis. But I'm going to play for you guys some of the things that I found, and I'll react to some of those. I'm going to then use that as a jumping off point to talk about this game tonight and what the team needs to do to change the narrative. And so we will do that, have some fun with it. And, it's all in good fun, but it does annoy me. It does. I will admit it. So let's get into it. The first sound I'm going to play for you comes from Chris Sims, Pro Football Talk. And so he's on with Mike Florio. And this is Chris Sims answering the question, who finishes last? Who finishes in fourth place in the NFC West? Here is what he had to say.
Do I think there's a path still, even though I'm going to pick them to be fourth right now, the Seahawks to be a playoff football team? Yeah, I do. But that's why I'm going to pick them fourth, because I got to see a few things. Got to see Sam Darnold in his new spot. Want to see how these receivers are doing. It's a whole different group of guys. Jackson Smith and Jigba is the only guy there that's left over. It's Cooper Kupp. It's Valdez Scantling. The defense is awesome. It's a new offensive coordinator with Kubiak. So that's where I guess there's just some – I'd like to see a little bit more evidence before I rank them any higher as of right now. Their defense is going to be real, and that's what scares me about putting them four. But I got too many other questions. Their O-line, can they get a hole from Kenneth Walker? The things we've talked about that, yeah, I'm going to put them for fourth right now, Mike.
You know what, Chris? You could have just said, I haven't done my homework. Like that would have been a much more concise way to summarize your perspective on the Seahawks, because this is what you're going to get from a lot of people, which is, well, we've got these questions. We don't have answers to any of these questions. Guess what? There are people that are actually traveling to training camps and watching teams play. There are people who are asking folks who cover the team, what are you seeing? There are people who are actually paying attention to the reporters that are reporting on what's going on in the different NFC West camps and all camps across the NFL, depending on how broad your purview is. It's not that hard to actually inform yourself about, do we have any information yet about how the things that I have questions about? Have we learned anything yet? Is there any indication of things going one way or another? Because if you'd done your homework, you would have heard that the Seahawks offensive line looked really, really good in the first game. And maybe start to add that into your interpretation or your analysis of this team. You might have heard that Sam Darnold has been playing much, much better over the last few weeks of camp and looking really good. Now, I agree there are questions about Sam Darnold. And in fact, I want to get into that in the next one, but this seems to be the, I'll call it lazy narrative out there, which is, well, we don't know what's going to happen with these guys, so we're going to pick them last. That's not analysis. That's laziness. And you know what? They're going to get the same clicks and likes and engagement no matter what. So why do the work? Why do the research? That is probably why. So this next one, I want to actually shift gears a little bit. This is, I didn't put their faces on the thumbnail as puppets because I don't feel like Sam Monson and Steve Palazzolo puppet what other people say. In fact, I think they do really good work. But in their season outlook that they just were doing a few days ago, this was like a week ago, they were talking about whether the Seahawks are going to be over under the 7.5 wins. And here was Sam Monson talking in particular about Sam Darnold and the questions that he left after last season.
Okay, it's time to stop expecting the wheels to fall off. Clearly, they're not going to, right? Like we had spent all season waiting for the wheels to fall off, and they didn't. And then right as you finally go, okay, fine, he's actually become a different player, he goes all the way back to I'm seeing ghosts again and just collapses in on himself. I can't think of another situation in the NFL in history where that's ever happened, where a guy looks like he has completely changed as a player, and then in the course of a game, a switch flips and he goes all the way back to like back in the shell, back in the hole. So number one, I honestly can't think of that ever happening before. So number two, who the hell knows what you do with that as information? Was that a blip? Was the season a blip?
What are you going to do with that information? Over under 7.5. I'm taking the over on Seattle. I'm buying Seattle here.
I'm going to take the over because I think everything around him is still pretty good. But I mean, I get it. It's like the Minnesota thing. They're basically giving him the same question marks as they gave JJ McCarthy.
So that was Steve Palazzolo and Sam Monson from Check the Mic podcast. And the reason I think Sam has a fair point there in terms of the kind of arc that Sam Darnold went through last year. And I think that's a really important aspect of what's going to happen tonight, because tonight is, by what we've heard from Mike McDonald, going to be a game where Sam Darnold takes the field for the first time as a Seattle Seahawk. Tonight is irrelevant in the big picture. It has no bearing on how the season is going to really go, generally speaking. But it has meaning for Sam Darnold, whether or not he would admit it or not. This is his first opportunity to make an impression about whether or not the bulk of last season was who he is as a quarterback, or the last couple of games are more representative of who he is as a quarterback. And I do think that has some weight. And as much as I absolutely think Chris Sims doesn't know what he's talking about and is not attempting to actually learn the answers to the questions he has. I also agree that there is no way to truly answer the Sam Darnold question until real bullets start to fly. And he is arguably the largest variable in this organization and in this season. And part of what we don't know is how much of it's going to be on Sam Darnold. For all the things that people talked about with the Vikings, like having the perfect situation for Sam Darnold last year, what people don't talk about was it actually wasn't that great of a run team. So if the Seahawks tonight, once again, are able to go out there and perform as an offensive line, perform as a run offense, that could really change the equation of just how much we need from Sam Darnold, if you're a Seahawks fan, in order for this to be a successful season, to be a playoff season, to win a playoff game. And I think that's the other real top storyline for this game tonight is offensive line, running game, and then off of that, Sam Darnold. Now, there's some other question marks. We'll talk about this. I've got some clips here in a second to play. But just to reiterate what I was bringing up about the Vikings running game, they were 22nd in the NFL in rush EPA. They were, where are they? They were 18th in the NFL in rushing success rate. So you are talking about a firmly bottom half of the league run game. It was actually relatively similar to the Seahawks run game last year. And so if Sam Darnold's going to get a better run game this year, then you don't need him to be like, that's going to be different than having to rely on having a Justin Jefferson, which you don't have a Justin Jefferson, but you do have some other guys. So the next little bit I wanted to play is this. This is from NFL and CBS, and this is Mike Renner and Brock Vereen and Kyle Long. And this is a conversation, their conversation about the Seahawks. Take a listen. This starts with Kyle Long, and then I think Brock Vereen jumps in here.
You can sneak a couple wins if you play against some backups, but it ain't going to be very great in Seattle.
Yeah, this one to me is just, I think going Geno Smith, Sam Darnold's a huge downgrade. Just huge. I don't think you can mitigate that. And you also went from DK Metcalf to Cooper Kupp. Like, I think that's also a huge downgrade. Like, I don't, if your goal was to take the next step offensively or just take the next step this offseason into, a team that won double-digit games to NFC West champs to a Super Bowl, I hated what they did. I hated what they did this offseason. I just don't think it was enough. And so that's why I'm at 7. But I'm with you, Brock. This defense is so good. I want this team to be good. They should be good. On the defensive side of the ball, it should be a dominant unit. It's just, I don't think offensively you're going to get near the results. Just Sam Darnold's fooled us enough at this point that I don't think he's your savior. All right, Arizona Cardinals up next. 8 wins.
So that was actually Mike Renner after Kyle Long. And Kyle Long started off by just saying, yeah, they might sneak in a couple wins because the 49ers are having some injuries and maybe the Rams will have some backup quarterback because of Matt Stafford. And so the only way that the Seahawks will win is if the other teams are bad. And then Mike Renner comes in with the trope, like Sam Darnold's a massive downgrade on Geno Smith. Cooper Kupp's a massive downgrade on DK Metcalf. End of story. And you hear it in some of these national opinions where you hear they are personally offended by what happened in Seattle. I hated what they did. As if, one, again, not to relitigate, as if it was purely their decision of how this was going to play out. And two, have you paid any attention to what's going on in the Seahawks training camp as far as Torrey Horton Jr.? Do you know who that even is? Do you know what he's capable of and how that's going to play a factor in the Seahawks offense? I see him play every single day for the last couple months. Well, with a little bit of a break in there. But I have a pretty good idea of what he is adding to this offense and how different he is than the other receivers. I also have a pretty good idea of how dependent they are or are not on Cooper Kupp, because this offense is going to run a lot of multiple tight end looks like we saw in the first preseason game. There's going to be a lot of times where there's two receivers on the field, and I've seen reps where those two receivers are JSN and Torrey Horton. That's a different looking pair of receivers than JSN and Cooper Kupp. That doesn't mean that Torrey Horton's going to be your number 2. But I think this idea that the Seahawks are depending on Cooper Kupp to replace DK Metcalf is lazy and poor analysis. And that said, I'm looking forward to Cooper Kupp. I think he will take the field for the first time as a Seahawk tonight. That's my bet. I think the receivers will play with their quarterback. And I think you will see Torrey Horton as the third receiver. Now, this is where things get intriguing, because the way that this is going to work, or could work, is that the Seahawks may already know that Torrey Horton is taking the spot from Marquez Valdez-Scantling. And while they will not publicly say that, and they will continue to praise MVS, they may try to showcase him in this game. Why would they do that? Because he's got a guaranteed contract. There are teams out there. I mean, the 49ers being one. I don't think that's where he'll go, but there are plenty of teams out there that are receiver needy. And if they can have MVS have a couple, even just one big catch, deep downfield, or a run after catch, or some big play, their opportunity to potentially trade him increases. So do we start the MVS trade watch tonight? Do we see them really try to get the ball to him in order to increase his value? I think that's I think people are going to say, oh, if MVS has a good game, then that means he's back in the competition with Torrey Horton and could jump him. I don't know if that's the case. I think if MVS has a big game, it increases the odds he'll get traded. If MVS does nothing in this preseason, I don't know you're going to find a team that would give up anything for him, and they may not be willing to eat that contract. So he might take a spot on this roster. So I think MVS and Torrey Horton are another big storyline tonight, and something I'm going to be paying attention to. I see somebody that just joined a little late saying, where's the puppets? Yeah, I thought this might be confusing, but hopefully it was a little bit tongue-in-cheek enough that people got it. I'm referring to the fact that the national analysts are just all puppets. Not all of them, but the ones that I've been referring to, that they pick up what someone else says and just repeat it. And that there's not a lot of individual analysis out there. There's actually not a lot of real thinking. There's a little bit of butthurtness of not liking how the Seahawks handled their offseason. And I think there's actually people kind of rooting against the Seahawks. As silly as that sounds, I think that they have priors that they want to defend about this, being the wrong direction for the team, that the way that they've built this roster is going to fail, and they're going to kind of look forward to sitting back and pointing and laughing when that happens. That's their assumption of what's going to go on. To give you some idea, this is what these guys, oops, that's the wrong. Why did that? Oh, there we go. Let me add this to the stage. There we go. This is what these three guys predicted for the Seahawks win totals this year. Mike Renner predicted 7. Kyle Long predicted 8. And Brock Vereen predicted 8. Each of them predicted the Seahawks to finish last in the NFC West. And, as we just heard from Chris Sims, they're not alone. That's part of how this is playing out. So I see we've got some super chats. Let me get to these. Mungle says, Brian is tired of the disrespect. I am a little annoyed by it, honestly. And when you look at this team, and I talked about this earlier, but this was a 10-win team with a essentially bottom half of the league offense, 18th, 19th, roughly in offense. And depending on which number you look at, even worse than that. They were a bottom 5 running team in the NFL. They had a bottom 5 offensive line in the NFL. And they also had probably the most red zone turnovers in the NFL. They had the worst starting field position of any team, and that was partially an issue for the defense and for the special teams. So you had all that going on. They still won 10 games. They had a much more difficult schedule. And I was talking to Aaron Schatz of DVOA fame this morning, and I was annoyed because everyone talks about the 49ers strength of schedule being the easiest. And the DVOA rankings came out, and they had the 49ers as the easiest. They didn't even have the Seahawks in the 10 easiest. There's only a 2-game difference between these schedules. I don't believe that the 49ers schedule is that much easier than the Seahawks. And in fact, part of the flaw there, at least from my perspective, in what Aaron's got going on, is they projected the schedule difficulty on projected DVOA. So they're guessing at how these teams are going to be this year. And they are much more bullish on the 49ers, and they're bullish on the Rams, and they're bullish on the Cardinals. And so that increases the difficulty for the Seahawks schedule, when the truth might be that the Seahawks are actually the tougher opponent, and that those other teams have tougher schedules because they've got to face the Seahawks, and that the Seahawks have an easier schedule because, you know what? The 49ers may not be that good again. Everyone assumes that the 49ers are going to be good. I am not there at all. I see a roster just littered with injury and holes, and rookies being asked to take on big moments, big roles in that team. And the Rams, I mean, if Matthew Stafford plays, the Rams a better team if an injured and limited Matt Stafford plays, or if an injured Matt Stafford does not play and Jimmy Garoppolo plays? I think everyone's like, oh man, if Matthew Stafford plays, then they're good. Are they? Are they good? Because I don't know that your back's going to handle the wear and tear of an NFL season. And if you have a back issue, how much are you going to be trying to protect it? Are you going to be making different decisions? Are you going to be limited in the types of throws you can make or that you're comfortable making? Are you struggling more in the second half after sitting down for halftime? Are you struggling more at the end of games? How do you handle bad weather if you have to play in the rain or the cold? Like, I don't know that that Matt Stafford is going to be the best version of himself no matter what happens between now and the beginning of the season. And you see these analysts kind of scrambling of like, well, the Rams are clearly the best. Are they? Like, are they? Like you've built your analysis on this house of cards with a 37-year-old QB who had his worst statistical season in like a decade or more and has injury issues. Like, a huge part of everyone saying the Rams are the best is Matt Stafford. Like, at least 40% of why people say that. Sean McVay is the biggest reason. Jared Verse and the young defensive line is another big reason. But I'd say that it ranks Sean McVay's first, Stafford is second, and then the other things come in at third. And so if your second reason evaporates, then how good was your analysis in the first place? Because you can't look at a team and just assume everything's going to go well. And that's why when you get back to the Seahawks game tonight, I think this is a big game for the defense. I think that even bigger in a lot of ways than Sam Darnold and the offense, even though there's more questions there. This defense for the Seahawks, you're going to get starters out there. They're going against Andy Reid and the Chiefs. How dominant can they look tonight? Do we see a pass rush? Do we see solid coverage? Do we see good tackling? Do we see Byron Murphy? I think this is a huge is too strong. I don't want to get hyperbolic, but I am really going to be watching Byron Murphy in this one. I think he is a very, like, I can say he is a huge part of the storyline of this season for the Seahawks. If he takes a big step forward, this team is a completely different animal than if he is even just the same player as last year. If he's the same player as last year and he gets more snaps, he's still going to be a big part of this defense. But if he's actually gotten better and is getting more snaps, I think he can be transformational, honestly, for this defense. You just don't have a significantly disruptive interior defensive lineman and not get better. I see this comment. I think Hawkblogger has no respect for Stafford. That it couldn't be further from the truth. The way I see Matt Stafford is 2023. I thought he should have gotten significant consideration for MVP. He was unbelievable in 2023. The throws he made, I was floored. I think there's a debate to be had about whether that was his best season as a player in the NFL. He was so good that year for a very young, very challenged Rams team. 2024, totally the opposite. I think he got tons and tons of praise for what was a below league average season. It just was. By any statistical measure, Matt Stafford was in the bottom half of the NFL starters last year. Now, he had some peak games that were as good as anybody in the league. But guess what? When you're 37, you're going to have fewer and fewer of your peak games. That's just how it works. So I have a ton of respect for Matt Stafford. The guy is tough as nails, smart, makes some really great throws. I'm just being realistic, I think, about his career arc and where he is in that career arc. And the fact that a lot of people just seem to put their hand over that and pretend it doesn't exist, and that he's still a 30-year-old in his prime player that's just going to be the same year after year. I think that time's come and gone. So getting back to the game tonight, let's talk about the defense. Let's talk about the guys that in that starting group that I expect to see. I don't know if we're going to see Leonard Williams. I don't know if we'll see Leonard Williams. I don't know if we'll see Jaron Reed. And I don't know if we need to see those guys. I think of everybody on defense, the number one guy to watch is Byron Murphy, number 91. 100%. He's the number one guy to watch. After him, it is the edge rushers. It is going to be Derek Hall, Boye Mafe. Can those guys demonstrate immediate impact in the edge rush? Because that is, I think, the biggest question mark about this team that most people are not asking. I think it does get brought up from time to time, but I think people either assume that the Seahawks edge rush is just going to be mediocre, like above average, maybe is better than mediocre. I think people think Derek Hall and Boye Mafe and DeMarcus Lawrence are a good trio, and Uchenna Nwosu whenever he gets back, but they just think they're a AAA, to use a baseball term, kind of pass rush, good but not great. Or maybe a better term would be, if you want to use baseball, it's a collection of number 3 starters in a rotation out of 5 starting pitchers. And I don't assume that. I think Derek Hall made a big step. I think he can make another big step in this year. I think Boye Mafe is going into a contract year and knows that this is a huge season for him. I think both of those guys have now been in this defense for a full season and have a better idea of how to operate in it. I also do have questions about them because I can't say I've seen them dominate throughout training camp. I've seen them have flashes of really good moments, but I have not seen like, okay, this guy's now unblockable. So I do think for like Byron Murphy, Derek Hall, Boye Mafe, those guys are a huge part of what could be the cornerstone of a young defensive line for years to come. How do they perform tonight? I think they'll get plenty of time. I am not assuming that DeMarcus Lawrence is going to play. I don't know that they gain anything from DeMarcus Lawrence playing. And if I'm Mike McDonald, I can't help but think about Uchenna Nwosu in the last preseason game last year, ending up with an injury that still is affecting him a full year later. Like, you lost one of your essentially starting edge players in a meaningless preseason game. And I just have to wonder if he's like, we really don't need to see Leonard Williams or DeMarcus Lawrence or, some of the vets out there. But I don't know. I'm curious how they're going to do it. I know those guys probably would like to play. I don't know. I'll have to talk to them tonight in the locker room and get a feel for whether they look forward to this or not. But I think that's the first three guys I'll be watching. The next is going to be inside backer, off-ball linebacker. With Tyrese Knight out, you will get Ernest Jones. I think Ernest Jones will play in this game. And then I think Patrick O'Connell will be the guy next to him. But I'm curious, like, how is Mike McDonald going to handle that other linebacker position, the weak side linebacker position? Is that going to be Patrick O'Connell? And do they rotate? Does Drake Thomas get any snaps there? And how do those guys look? Patrick O'Connell, I think, is relatively gifted as a coverage guy. I think he is decent in, especially if you want to blitz him. He actually, for people that don't know, was a pass rusher in college, had like, I think, over 25 sacks in his college career in Montana. But the question for me is, how is he going to be in run fits and being able to tackle in those situations? Because he's a little bit undersized. So, and his speed is not top notch. So I think Patrick O'Connell, this is potentially a big game for him. And after that, we get into the man who probably a lot of people are going to be looking forward to seeing is Nicky Manwari. Nicky Manwari only got a handful of snaps in the first game. Does he get more? How is he used? How does he look? I thought he seemed a little tentative in that first game. I don't think he was playing free and easy. And that's why, I hope he gets enough snaps that he starts just to be able to play on instinct and not be thinking so much. It wasn't like it was a bad game. I showed you film, if you guys watched the rewind, of how quickly he closed on his blitz and affected Geno Smith like right away. But I still I think there is just a fluidity that is not there yet with Nicky Manwari in terms of how he can just flow within this defense and be connected with what's going on in this defense. I think he's still searching for that. So he's the other guy I will be watching closely tonight. So those are of the starters, those are the guys that I think I'm going to have probably key eye on defense. When you get into the next level of players, like the second string, there's a huge battle going on in the defensive line room. And that includes, we'll talk defensive tackles and edge. But right now, Mike Morris had a big game last week and has been coming on, and he's a different kind of defensive tackle or defensive interior player than Quentin Bohanna, Brandon Peely, Bubba Thomas, J.R. Singleton, Anthony Campbell. Bohanna and Peely have been playing together, and their performance tonight could have implication on whether or not Jonathan Hankins ever plays for this team again. Hankins is on NFI. I think I've been thinking this whole time that was a handshake agreement with the team, that he did not have to go through training camp, and that he was essentially a I think, a safety net for the nose tackle position, that they wanted to see if Quentin Bohanna and or Brandon Peely could play well enough that they'd feel comfortable with those guys taking on that role and not having Jonathan Hankins on the roster. So tonight's an opportunity to continue the march. I think Bohanna's ahead in that race. The question is it a one or the other makes the team, or do both make the team? If both make the team, what does that mean for Mike Morris? I think Mike Morris makes this team, partially special teams, partially because he is flexible interior, exterior. And then watch out, like, as far as like deep sleepers on the 53, remember Jalen Sundell made it last year and nobody had him making it? A couple guys that could fit that kind of profile are Bubba Thomas and J.R. Singleton. Now, I'm not saying both of them could make it, but one of them might be a guy that I think they really like those guys. And I know that they'd like to have at least one of them, maybe both of them on the practice squad if they don't get them on the 53. It's not out of the question that one of those guys jumps up in their evaluation and they want to keep them. So those are the other, I mean, Anthony Campbell, number 93, he has really, really stepped forward the last week or so in camp. He looks the part. He's 6'7". He's like just a super physical player. Does he flash in this game? So I think defensive line in general is going to be something to watch, whether it's the 1s, 2s, or 3s. And then edge, watch out for Connor O'Toole. Connor O'Toole, number 57. He had the only sack in the game in the first preseason game. I think he's looked even better in practice this week. So I'm really eager to see how he looks. And with the injury to Jalen Gaines, which I don't know if we've gotten any additional words on, but the path for Connor O'Toole to potentially sneak up there increases. And I personally still have Jared Ivey and Tyreek Smith above Connor O'Toole. And Jared Ivey had a terrific first game. He's had a pretty good week of practice. Can he further solidify himself as part of this 53 with a game tonight? So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to watch on defense. I go even further with the cornerback situation where Shaquille Griffin, I'm not positive, I think he might get his first reps as a Seahawk tonight. And Shamar Jean-Charles is still out injured. Nehemiah Pritchett has had a uneven but improving preseason. And so seeing how he does, Demarion Williams does, I think there's a cornerback battle still going on there as well. So again, lots going on the defensive side of the ball. And certainly for me, seeing how they do against Andy Reid and this offense from Kansas City is going to be a big part of this game. The other thing, like, I am curious, the Chiefs drafted Josh Simmons and have been playing him at left tackle, and there's been rave reviews about this guy. He performed pretty well in his first preseason game. They've got a pretty good line. You've got Trey Smith, you've got Creed Humphrey, you've got Kingsley Samatea. So there's some good guys there. And even their backup, Jalen Moore at left tackle, this was a guy they signed in free agency. He was the backup for Trent Williams in San Francisco. And there was a lot of people that thought he would end up as the starter in KC. Right now, he's running with the second string. So you've got some decent guys to watch. And for people that remember him and are Cougs, Issa Pohl, it got a lot of run last time. He's, I think, third string left tackle. He played 35 snaps in the first game. He did really well. And this is a guy the Seahawks had actually had in for a visit, ended up going with the Chiefs. But yeah, I think it's going to be a good test for the Seahawks defensive line and pass rush to go up against not only a good offensive line, but a play caller who knows how to use screens and other things to kind of get you off of your pass rush. So, that I think battle is going to be a key part of what happens tonight. Now, on the other side, offensively for the Seahawks, defensively for the Chiefs, I personally am really interested to see Omar Norman Lott, number 55 for the Chiefs. He was a favorite of mine, and he's been playing really well from all reports for the Chiefs. So he will be in there at some point. We'll get to watch him. I don't know. I would not expect to see Chris Jones. We will get to see Jeffrey Bassa from University of Oregon, who is also an interesting guy to watch there. We very well might see like Trent McDuffie, and Chris Jones did play 3 snaps last week for the Chiefs. Maybe he plays more. Nick Bolton, George Karlaftis, I would expect to get some snaps. So this to me feels like a much better test of the Seahawks offensive line than what the Raiders threw out there last week. So I'm really curious about how the offensive line, I mean, let's face it, that is the most important thing that can come out of this preseason is solidifying the offensive line, getting some confidence and continuity and some execution, and feeling like they enter the season believing that they can run the ball and that they can pass protect. And the first game was a huge step forward. Now, can they do it again? And you'll get Josh Jones at left tackle again. So there's some asterisk to this that could show up. But I would love to see Gray Zabel even get 1 rep against Chris Jones and see how that goes. I would love to see Anthony Bradford get 1 rep against Chris Jones and see how that goes. I'd assume both of those guys would have trouble, but maybe they don't. And that would be great to see. Anthony Bradford's a guy that has seemingly locked up the right guard position and can lock up that role tonight. I believe that's the case. I think the Seahawks could land on 4 of their 5 starters on the offensive line after this game. Olu Oluwatimi will not play. Jalen Sundell will start again. If the team has already kind of decided Olu is the starter, then that's that. Jalen Sundell may do things tonight that change that equation. Maybe they start getting closer to naming him the starter, and Olu is someone who they give some time to heal up, and he gets Wally Pipped a little bit. So Wally Pipp, guy that lost his job for being injured in baseball a long time ago, if you don't know that reference. So, that was kind of like a look at what's going on with the offensive line. Running back wise, I wouldn't expect to see Ken Walker, but maybe. I wouldn't expect to see Zach Charbonnet, but maybe. I think it's totally fine to run George Halani and Jacardier Wright. And I think the biggest game out there is for Damian Martinez, who had pretty much by all accounts, not a great first preseason game with the Seahawks. If Damian Martinez has hopes of making this roster, he better start tonight. And as of now, I think it's a pretty big uphill battle for him. After that, obviously everyone's gonna be watching Robbie Oots. I don't know how much there is to learn about it from now. I think he is the guy that we saw him be in that first game. And then receiver wise, outside of the Torrey Horton piece, and obviously JSN and Cooper Kupp hopefully getting their first reps, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling, there's still a big battle. Jake Bobo, Derek Young, Cody White. How those guys, anyone that does anything on special teams tonight is going to be a big deal. So those are some of the things that get my attention. All right. Some more super chats here. Hawk Scoot says, who's been a member for 11 months, says the only national guy to give us love was Cowherd. That is true. I think Colin Cowherd picked the Seahawks to finish first. And I hope some of you guys are planning to go to the game tonight. Like, this is a really good preseason game to go to. And one of the things I've been trying to do is get you guys as many deals on how to get, cheaper seats into Seahawks games as possible. And we've got a special deal going with SeatGeek. Let me talk to you about it for a sec. Seahawks football is back. I cannot wait to see Lumen Field packed with Seahawks fans again, which is why I want to give the sponsor of today's video, SeatGeek, a huge shout out. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There are more than 70,000 events listed on SeatGeek, including concerts, sports, festivals, and a bunch more. The NFL's just around the corner. The Mariners are chasing a World Series ring. One of the things I love about using SeatGeek is they've got your back. Each ticket's rated on a scale from 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. Green dot's good, red not as good, but you know what? Every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee. Personally, I'm going to be using SeatGeek to buy some Mariners tickets for the stretch run. I may be tempted to get one of the Adam Sandler tickets. Who knows? They've got all sorts of things. If there's a ticket, SeatGeek's going to have it on there. And you know I came through for you guys. You can use code HawkBlogger, get $20 off tickets at SeatGeek. That's $20 off your first purchase with promo code HawkBlogger. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app. Have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you, SeatGeek. Awesome deal. So make sure you use code HawkBlogger over at SeatGeek. Click the description in the link in the description of the video. It'll automatically add it to your account. Great chance to get $20 off, whether it's Seahawks tickets or something else. Make sure you take advantage of a limited time deal. Old School Seahawk has gifted 20 Hawk Blogger memberships. Old School, man, thank you for your generosity. Go ahead and grab one of these free memberships. All you got to do is turn gifting on your YouTube account, interact with the channel, like, subscribe, comment, all those things. That's how YouTube decides who gets these free memberships. Old School follows up with a question here. Who signs your Seahawks helmets? Also missed my regular Blue Friday guest. When will we see Mike and Dave? Yeah, regular season, we'll see whether we'll keep the same crew or not. I'm kind of deciding what my lineup will be for the season, but yeah, we'll figure that out coming up pretty soon. And as far as who signs my Seahawks helmets, those are all LOB era. So yeah, I have pretty much, Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson, Bobby Wagner, Sherman, Doug, pretty much Marshawn, pretty much everyone on the team has signed those helmets. And I've got a bunch of footballs with the same signatures, which I assume is worth something. I don't know. I'm not a big paraphernalia guy. I just happened to be at the charity functions where they were doing this stuff, and I thought the helmets were kind of a cool thing to get signed. Some of the signatures on the footballs fade over years, but not so much on the helmets. All right. So yeah, make sure you take advantage of the SeatGeek offer. And let's go to the game tonight. I mean, I'm going to be in the press box. I will be in the locker room afterwards. I will be at the press conferences afterwards, getting a chance to ask guys questions. And then tomorrow, we'll find out the right time we can do it. But Jeff Simmons and I will talk about the game. I'll write my morning after column, and then Jeff and I will kind of recap what we see. But man, this is a huge one. This is a huge one for the Seahawks. Huge one for I think Sam Darnold to get off on the right foot. I will tell you, my expectations are not high for the passing game. And so if they come in there and even just look sharp and are able to execute well, that would be a good thing from my perspective. If they struggle, I'm not going to be like, oh man, the Seahawks offense is going to suck. I expect them to struggle a little bit. Now, the thing that could get me most optimistic coming out of this game are two things: pass rush on defense, running game on offense. If those two things happen, then good things are going to happen for this team. So that's kind of the way that I see it. All right, let me see if there's any other questions here before I let you go. There was a great appearance by Mike McDonald and Sam Darnold on the Get Got pod with Marshawn Lynch and Mike Robb. Highly encourage you to check that out. I'll play some sound for it probably on another show. I think Sherm is in the process of doing some interviews with those guys, maybe even now. So good chance to go check that out. Otherwise, I will see you guys all later. Probably not a second show today. Like doing a post-game show at like 11 o'clock or midnight is just not going to probably happen. Maybe, but probably not. I will likely be getting locker room sound again, and I post that for folks on patreon.com/hawkblogger. So keep an eye out for that middle of the night. And it's a good reason to join patreon.com/hawkblogger if you haven't already. And that also gets you access to the Discord channel where there's a game day thread. People are talking about the game all throughout. It's a fun way to hang out and watch the game, even if you can't attend it. If you are a YouTube club level or higher member, you also get access to the Discord server, and you can join that game day thread channel as well. We got a super chat from Carlo Coleman, says, where's the gang sitting at Titans? Buying tickets soon. I appreciate the thought. I am not going to reveal that. So I'll be in the press box personally. And, you know, I know a lot of folks value their privacy. And also, you know, you have to, I would just say that it's not always great having everybody know where you are. And that sometimes you just want to kind of turn it off and be offline and just be with, you know, the folks that you know. So I try not to put on blast where people are going to be sitting and where they're going to be going for pregame. I am looking at potentially organizing either pregame or some kind of get together in Nashville, because so many of us will be there. We'll find out. If I get more information, I'll share that with you guys as soon as that comes to fruition. So until then, appreciate everybody. Have a great rest of your Friday. I'm Brian Nemhauser. This has been another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Take care, y'all.